So there's a difference between overvalued and overbought.
Yeah.
And so basically, if they become super consensus, they can become overbought, meaning that, everybody piled onto them. The rate of change for their prices moves so quickly, everybody piled in, and then they're prone to a correction or consolidation until people forget about it, and then it kind of
Mm-hmm.
it kind of starts another stealth bull market. And then there's also, in some localized examples, there's concerns of overvaluation. And an example I used back in my May newsletter was lumber, right? So lumber
Mm-hmm.
went parabolic, but it was specifically due to a sawmill constraint. And so
Mm-hmm.
actually timber was still cheap, but the process of turning it into lumber, there's a bottleneck there. You could only turn so much timber into lumber unless you build more lumber mills. But they understood that, this level of lumber demand is probably not going to persist for many years, and so
Mm-hmm.
they didn't want to, the market didn't, decide to allocate capital to build all these new lumber mills just in time to have prices go down, and for them not to be fully used. And so we had that temporary constraint, but I was like, these high prices are going to eventually restrict home building. The demand's going to fade a little bit, and then that glut will work itself out. And so that's what we saw with lumber. So that was an example of an overvalued commodity, and so there have been some instances like that. Now overall, copper was overbought. It became a consensus trade. Everybody and their mother was like, "Hey, you have to own copper, right?" And so
Mm-hmm.
it became very popular. But I still think looking out many years, the copper is likely to do well. And so, for example, we bought some copper stocks in mid 2020. We covered that in the reports,
Mm-hmm.
trimmed them earlier this year, sold out of some of them, still have some of them within, like, say, broad commodity ETFs
Mm-hmm.
or with companies like Rio Tinto in some cases, but sold out some of our pure copper plays. Might get back into them at some point. They've kind of leveled off a little bit, so I'm kind of still watching that space. I still like copper long term. Uranium stocks also, again, they
Mm-hmm.
especially some of the smaller ones, they got kind of overbought there. They got pretty excited, became pretty consensus. Now it's correcting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's actually starting to get somewhat more attractive again, right? Because the market's
Mm-hmm.
starting to forget about that. And so again, I don't think uranium was overvalued. In fact, it was still below the cost of what it would take to profitably mine uranium.